Well, how do you do, buckaroos? This is Joe Layton of Cowboys and Indians magazine, and I am very happy today to be talking to Mr. Warren Burke, who's one of the stars of a terrific new Western, Dollar for the Dead, directed by none other than Walter Hill. And I have to start off with saying I've seen a lot of Westerns in my time, and I've seen a lot of shootouts in Westerns. But this is the first Western I've ever seen where there's been a whip out. How much time did you have to rehearse with that bullwhip, sir?
well, number one, thanks for having me, Joe. I really appreciate your time. For the Prep for Dead for a Dollar, it was a whole lot of different things had going on, from me starting out 3 months ahead of time to do horseback riding training, and then getting there and then doing an additional month of training in Santa Fe, New Mexico. But while we were in the midst of shooting, the bullwhip scene, that was the kind of a debatable topic, because we weren't really sure if we wanted to keep it in, if it was too heavy, given the kind of precedent of me having this bullwhip and the gentleman. But me, Walter, and the gentleman, his name is Scott Pete, who was the fellow great, wonderful actor, awesome actor. We all had a conversation, and I just pleaded how important it is just for culture to have this in there. And next thing you know, for the next, I want to say, month, I was kind of, I remember, oh my gosh, anytime I wasn't shooting, I was constantly with this incredible gentleman who I need to make sure I get the name, forgive me, oh my gosh, who the training that I received as far as regarding to what a bullwhip is, how to use it, how to guide it. I want to say it took approximately a solid 3 weeks for me to really, really get it down. Once I encapsulated what it was to for the whip to be an extension of my hand, as a gentleman would say, I really mastered it. But it was so much fun, and a good new trick, and a skill to have in the register of being an actor. So it was great. It was great. 3 weeks, I would say, though, to answer your question. 3 weeks.
Well, now, you bring up a good point that there was a time when a lot more Westerns were made, and any actor who wanted to work regularly, whether it be in film or television, had to have a certain skill set, and that skill set had to include, knowing how to ride a horse, maybe knowing how to look believable when you draw a gun. I'm looking over your resume. I don't see too many chances you've had before to ride horses. Am I overlooking something, or?
You're not overlooking it much, not at all. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, man. Growing up in the South. And so with me being down there, my father, he was always around. He kind of always around horses. And, there's a few neighbors of ours. He was a doctor. So him and his a few colleagues that he had would always reference me. And we would go to their ranch. And that was usually my first, little nibble, sample platter of actually riding the horses. But one thing about me, Joe, that I feel that, a lot of people will learn is that when I have my mind set on something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to carry it all the way through. I'm going to make sure and ensue that it's going to seem as though I have been riding for years. And so even though the few times that I had been on a horse were okay, it really didn't come to full spectrum until it was official that I got the role. I want to say that day I went to this gentleman by the name of Reginald Dorsey. And it's a friend of mine. He's an African American, trained several other African American gentlemen who have been on camera, specifically in Westerns as well. It's so funny because while I was training with him, my stunt person, Trey, the guy who was going to be my stunt guy on the horse, he was there too to catch up. And I was there before him. I was like, trying to get up and get back the skill of being back on a horse. But yeah, man, for me, it was just the instilling that discipline of knowing that I had to come across, and the shoulders that I stood on, Woody Strode and several others, and in regards to so many Westerns before my time, so many Black men portraying cowboys before my time, and I had to make sure I came correct. So I just took it as a distinctive honor. And I also, while on my walks, specifically, I'm pretty sure we'll get to in a second, but with Christoph Waltz and getting to know him, the last time he was on something like this was during Django Unchained. And so for him to compare me and his experience with him with riding with Jamie Foxx during that same time during Django Unchained, I was like, wow, I even more so need to make sure that I am not playing around, and I didn't play around at all, Joe. It's a really great journey into learning how to truly not only ride a horse, but then to be a cowboy, on a horse, but then to be an actor playing a cowboy or a sergeant on a horse, because when the camera's on it, you got to make sure your body is at a certain, you got to cheat it a certain way so it looks like, oh, okay, this looks regular, when in fact I'm like kind of sideways or whatever. But no, man, I really took it seriously, and I really enjoyed the whole process, from bullwhipping to horseback riding, truly.
Well, that's another thing that not just on a horse, but okay, you've been in the military. Your character's been in the military, and he's kind of gotten up through the ranks. He's a sergeant, so he has to look not only pretty much at ease and at home on the horse, he's got to look like a pretty doggone good rider.
So doggone that he's probably taught some of his admirals around to horseback riding how to properly do something, especially when it comes to. I loved how I wanted to make sure that the bullwhip just hung off the side of the horse to just kind of give you a precedent, of what was to come, of saying, hey, I'm riding this horse, but this whip stays here for a reason, which you'll later on see. But yeah, that I really wanted to make sure of it. Yeah, and it's so great. The guys there, the wranglers who were a part of it, Joe and Wyatt and Damien and so many others, they were just so lovely and helpful, man. They brought me into they were just so cool, such great gentlemen. I think with me being here with Reginald Dorsey and then going on over to Santa Fe and the wranglers that were provided by the production, both of them were the perfect recipe to truly mastering, in such a short period span of mastering what it looks like to be on a horse on camera specifically. And it was great. It really was.
Well, I'm sure you're aware of the fact that, with Walter Hill, you're working with the living legend, everything from, 48 Hours to Geronimo to, The Driver to, you name it. Different
Warriors,
genres.
that's my favorite. Warriors come out and play, yeah.
Exactly. But he has often said that the Western is his favorite genre.
That's his favorite.
And did he ever give you any idea, why he thought you were perfect for the role of Sergeant Poe?
I asked him that. I sat him down and I was like, why me, man? You got a whole wealth of who's this new guy that you really wanted to take a plunge on? And he literally broke it down to me. It was like nobody else did what I did in my audition tape. I think he was just telling me a lot of guys were kind of phoning it in or probably didn't take it serious, but he's like, the moment he pressed play, he knew that I was taking it so serious. Simply with the elements of knowing that when I first saw it, it was in 1897, and making sure that I embodied everything it meant for this gentleman who existed in 1897 to be seen. So moments like, and doing this all via the audition of making sure that I was seen from this strong perspective of someone who lived there. And then also I knew that he was already a Buffalo soldier, so I wanted to ensue that a little bit and just tailoring the character. I took it so serious. There's a lot of roles being an actor that you see and you become so fond of and you grow attachment to, but this one was a little bit different. It very much felt divine, and I just gave him my all, man. I gave him my all, and here we are months later and setting up for the premiere on Wednesday.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Did you get to go to Venice?
I did not. I stayed back this time. I had some other things going on. Currently, right now, I'm in production for my show that I'm on, which is Netflix's Family Reunion.
Oh, yes.
I've been shooting that and doing a few press things with that, so I wasn't able to trek on over there. But boy, oh boy, are we in for a ride on Wednesday. Definitely going to make up for lost time.
Now, there was so much going on in this movie, and there are certain scenes that stick out. One that stuck out for me is the scene in the jail where you're talking about your friend who thinks you've betrayed him, that you've sold out, everything.
Elijah. Oh yeah, what a great moment. Yeah.
And first off, how much rehearsal did you have for that? And I'm sure, you are cognizant of the fact that, not to hit the audience over the head with it, but you both were representing points of view. I'll get that out sooner or later. About what was the role of the black soldier at that time. Did that weigh heavily on your mind as well?
100%. Brandon Scott is an incredible gentleman. He's the actor who played Elijah Jones, and he and I met up for brunch, and we spoke for exactly 5 hours nonstop about this character and what it meant to be a Black man living in that time. And, you know, kind of to a certain degree, we came down to the roots of it, of like, this is kind of like this Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X type of, you know, back and forth that we see, like, hey, we should come together. And another side being like, hey, screw that. I don't want to come together. I want us to create our own, you know, let's forget the system. And I'm like, no, it's better if we adhere to the system so we can, you know, get get ahead that way. And kind of this traditional versus rebellious route was just so beautiful, not just to talk about Offset, but then to come together with both of our talents and to portray it, especially through this jail cell, which I loved. It just like, we understood the gravitas of what that scene was. We understood the weight, with us being the only two African-American people on a part of the cast, and how we had to make sure that, you know, this representation of these two different minds, these two different mindsets, one wanting to stay, one wanting to leave, one wanting to adhere, one wanting to rebel. It really, it made us take it to a different level. In fact, I want to say that day, that was probably the only day we didn't talk offset. We usually were hanging out, having lunch. We didn't even want to see each other, you know, because what came about in that scene was just, for me at least, was just I'm coming back to it so much. It's like, ugh, how dare you? How could you just mess this whole plan that we had up, you know? And I felt like Sergeant Poe truly had this yearning of like, yo, why did you leave me? Why did you abandon the plan? And it's Elijah pleading to him, like, why can't you accept me? Why can't you accept this ways of how I am and how I'm not adjusted to the system? So anyway, I could go on and on about this, but it was just it's one of the scenes that definitely stand out to me, particularly because it's with Brandon and myself, and we know that we're representing two different mindsets and breaking down any type of mentality that, you know, men of our caliber might have during that time. So it really felt great. Yeah.
Now, one of the many things I liked about the film is, you know, that there are moments of humor, but it's serious. I mean, it's a homage, but it's also a classical Western.
Uh-huh.
But every so often, you know, there's a kind of a twinkle in Mr. Waltz's eyes. And I have to ask, you know, the typical star question: what is he like on the set? Is he playful, or is he serious, or is he inclusive, or standoffish, or what?
Truly the most authentic man that you would truly find. You know, when I first started acting back at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, my very first teacher, his name's Harvey Solon. He said, actor problems are people problems, and people problems are actor problems. That's simple. So the star quality of what you're seeing in Christoph Waltz and how he's able to convey so many different characters with such ease, it's because he's so real and grounded and has a knowingness of who he truly is within himself, which then allows him, when he meets someone like myself, to just be so real and talk to me about Austria and the business and how both of our birthdays are in October. And this quick story, funny enough, that, you know, base camp, when we drive into the ranch, drive in, get to the entrance of the ranch, and you got about a 3 to 4 minute drive before you get to base camp, where all the cars are. That's where the trailers are, the tents for, you know, where you go eat and stuff. And then from base camp, it's about 0.8 miles away from the actual town where we're actually shooting, you know. And Christoph took it upon himself that he was going to walk from base camp, those 0.8 miles, to where we're actually going to be shooting. He has an assistant. He has an assistant with a car, and an assistant with a car who has gas. But he insisted that he wanted to walk. And so I'm in my car with my assistant who's driving me, and I'm like, hey, how come he's walking and I'm in here? Hey. And I know that the movie it entails with our relationship, you know, on this journey together. So I was like, I think I need to get out, and I think I need to walk with him to base. I think I need to do that from base to set. And I did. And man, those are probably the best moments I'll ever have in my acting career, of just hearing how You know, I don't know if have you seen Django Unchained?
Oh,
His
yes.
last movie? Yeah.
Yes.
To know that, like, that moment when everybody has the hoods over their eyes or whatever, and they're like, man, this is a hazard. We shouldn't be down here. This could possibly hurt somebody.
Mhm.
Well, it actually did. In fact, it's like I think two people broke their ribs when they were in that scene that he was telling me. It was like it was a dumb idea. We should not have had, they shouldn't have had those hoods over their head because, like, I think somebody fell
Mhm.
off the horse and the horse trampled their ribs or something. So they had to stop production or whatever just for that one scene
Mm.
because of that one scene, which I thought was like, wait, what? Are you kidding me? He's like, yeah, nobody really knows that. Like, people really got hurt. Um, but that, and just telling me, and I told him, I was like, hey man, I even told him of moments like this. I'm gonna be impressed, man. I'm gonna be talking to all these different people. What's it like being with Christoph? What's it like being Christoph? You tell me what to say. What should I tell him?
Mhm.
And he was like, hey man, tell him whatever you want, but just know at the end of the day, the only reason why I'm here is because you have to know who you are. You have to know who you are. And he was like, he even said it to me, like, for you to even be here asking me the question, there's a element of you know who you are. So that's how I landed on authenticity. I think he understands in order to be as successful as you are, and knowing that, Warren, we want you to be Sergeant Poe. We want you to be this. We want you to be that. That you have to have a grounded root to you. That could be your family, it could be yourself, but you have to truly have a clear understanding of who you are. So then you can put on the mask and not be enthralled by, in my case, being a Sergeant Poe years later. So it was great. It was great.
Does he
Authenticity.
travel? Does he travel with both Oscars or just one?
Just one, throws it out every now and again. He's not a bragger. No, he didn't have any Oscars at all.
Good.
He was great. Everybody loved him.
Well, look, you've been very generous with your time. I know you've got to go, but I don't want to give
Yeah.
too much of the game away. But a sequel is possible. Let's put it that way.
Very, very, very possible. A prequel is possible. How did this all start? What was it like, for not just when was that moment when Elijah fell in love with Rachel? When was that moment when Elijah left, Sergeant Poe? When did Max Borlund think that it was a good idea to take on being a bounty hunter, and so much more, so much more. So you'll just have to tune in and watch out, but who knows? Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed, we'll see it.
Well, good luck. Like I say, this is a terrific classical Western with a couple of really intriguing, even surprising twists.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish you all the luck in the world with it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Joe. It has been an honor, and best wishes to you as well. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.